My name is HW, and thank you so much for listening to episode 67 of the Tone Junkie podcast. We got a lot to talk about. We got to talk about NAMM. We got to talk about why I'm doing a new video version of this podcast. And I know I've kind of attempted that before, and I've done some video versions, and I might still do some video episodes and put them up on the main channel. But this is the first video that's going up on the Tone Junkie podcast channel, which is cool, right? It's cool. Some people might be watching this on YouTube, on that new channel, or they just might be watching on Facebook. I'm not going to create another Facebook page, or they're just listening. And no matter how you consume Tone Junkie content, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's good to have you. I know in past episodes I've been drinking a lot of coffee, but it's late at night, as you can see. My little light burnt out in this room up here, so if you're watching on the podcast, I just have a couple studio lights that way that are pointing at me. Water. Water is an underrated beverage. Water is the most valuable thing in the world, if you think about it. Of course, that's the whole diamond water paradox, which is more valuable, water or diamonds? Well, sometimes water is abundant. You can just turn on your faucet and get it. And in that scenario, diamonds are usually a heck of a lot more valuable. But imagine running around in a desert with a bag full of diamonds. You'd trade it all for a glass of water. And of course, you can die with those diamonds, and the water will keep you alive. So in that way, the water is far more valuable. Why am I doing it? Why are we putting up the video? This is an Ask HW episode of the podcast, and it's going to be fun. You guys submitted a bunch of questions, and I'm super excited to answer them. But why? Why are we doing this video version of the podcast? Well, here's one thing is, I want to just make more video content, but also, I've been just trying to make so much video content, and here's really why. A couple hours ago, like literally 2 hours ago, I put up a video on the YouTube channel, and it is performing very bad. It's not performing well. And I'm realizing how much, like maybe emotion I have wrapped up in how well content does. I'm trying different hours of the day, putting this stuff out, and I've had some really great videos lately, man. Like, we had the first Kemper show, like 11,000 views. Kemper, me and Christoph Kemper, the interview we did at NAMM, 8,500 views. Kemper show 2, 5,500 views. Put out some good content about some different stuff, about some rock profiles. All about 2,000 views. Not terrible, not bad at all. Just for demos, those are good view counts. I bought a $7,000 amp, 3,300 views, 2,900 views on 57 Bandmaster. And then again, put out a little demo, 1,400 views in 2 days. Not bad at all for Tone Junkie channel. Not bad. Just put out yesterday, Kemper Show number 3, How to Profile. Honestly, thought that was going to be a home run. We get so many questions about how to profile. But look, you're just playing the algorithms, right? And then put out something 2 hours ago, 171 views. And it's got me thinking, man, I used to remember when 171 views that would have been like I just won the lottery. You know what I mean? But it's the hedonic treadmill. Something that makes you really joyful and gleeful up front. As it continues to happen, you experience less and less joy from it. So I got to get my head right. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people know me as like a real, like just voice of like positivity and you can do it. And I echo a ton of like Gary V stuff because Gary's been super influential to me. And I've had a couple opportunities to tell him that. And every time I tell him that, I know it's like, this is just another face in the crowd telling me thank you. And that's good, man. But Gary's done a lot for me, and Gary helps me get my mind right sometimes. So maybe I'll go listen to a Gary V thing after this, because, man, I'm just feeling like I thought that was a killer video. But that's the thing, you never know. You know what I mean? And part of this job is like, yeah, I'm trying to profile the world, but I'm also trying to like, you try to get the Tone Junkie name out there, and you try to be a content creator, and I'm doing that, right? I'm doing that. I'm like living my dream right now. But you throw up a video and you're just like, what? Come on, that's a good one. So this is just me challenging myself to go, you know what? Stop taking it so seriously. Just put out content. Just stop. Just, don't get in your head. Don't look at the view counts and let it be like, oh, this got 1 million things or that got 1 million. And then, you start psychoanalyzing it. You start going, well, when I did this YouTube tile, when I made it look like this. And you can look at my content and see how I just did a string of YouTube tiles that kind of look similar. And I don't know, man. You never know what people are going to dig and what they aren't going to dig. But I know what they are digging. They're digging the 57 Bandmaster. They're digging it. Man, people are messaging me and just going, HW, the 65 Twin, amazing. HW, the Triple Crown, amazing. HW, the 57 Bandmaster, amazing. What have you done differently? These packs are like the best packs we've ever encountered. I'm going, dude, I don't know. You just sit down, you do your best, you listen. Maybe I've got fresh ears those days. I try to have fresh ears when I sit down to profile. You know what's coming next, though? And I don't mean next like next week, but you know what's coming next? Man, I'm on the hunt for an AC-10. I mean like a good one, like a 63, 62 AC-10 original speakers. AC-10 with your EF86 preamp tube. AC-10 with your EC85 preamp. I forget the other designation. It's an unusual tube in there. We're coming for you. We're coming for you. There's a version with the ELAC speakers. There's a version with Celestion 10-inch speakers. We don't know which one we're going to do yet. We're coming for you. We're coming for you. AC-10, you're the forgotten AC circuit. You're the one people talk about from the Doug and Pat show. You're the circuit that's known as the AC workhorse. We're coming for you. You are one of the great treasures. I'm kind of into these vintage amps lately that people don't talk about a lot. The Bandmaster was one. The AC-10's another one. Oh, we're going to do more AC-30s. There's going to be more. There's going to be more AC-30s. Like, I was looking at the Tone Junkie packs the other day, and I've been shopping for a lot of vintage amps, and I realized, wait a minute, we did the 62 AC-30. That was the pre-Top Boost AC-30. We got to go get a 64 Top Boost model, and then we need to go get like a Rose Morris model, and we need to cover we need to catalog in our attempt to profile the world these different AC-30s. They're going to be there. All right, let's get into it. First of all, wait, let me say something. The podcast is always brought to us by the Tone Junkie Loaded Kemper, available exclusively at British Audio. It is a great, great deal. And look, I know most people have Kempers already. If you listen to this podcast, you listen to this kind of channel and show and everything. You know that I know you already got one. I know you already got a Kemper. But if you got a friend who's looking for a Kemper, if you're looking to buy a second one, like maybe you're trying to buy a stage or something, get the Tone Junkie Loaded one, because it comes with all the Tone Junkie profiles. You get everything you're missing for free, or you get all the profiles for free. It's a full everything pack. Okay, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. All right, y'all submitted some questions, and yep, y'all is my new thing, and it's been my thing for a little while. No, you guys submitted questions, and let me pull up the Tone Junkie Instagram here. And what the heck? How do you do that? Instagram? What's going on? All right, let me close Instagram because that's not working. And, oh, there we go. We could change it there. All right. Let's look at some of these questions. I also can pull up the Facebook questions right here. One of the great things about being in front of your computer, you can reach everything. And all right, let's get into it. Here we go. Let's see it. All right. Marco Silveria, or Silvira, I don't know. Marco, what's up, dude? Marco wants to know, what pickups are you using in your telly? Marco, you're probably talking about the white telly. I got it over here. It's kind of like in the frame a little bit. You can see it right there. Marco, listen, here's the story of that guitar, and I've told it once or twice. The story of that guitar is, when I was living in San Francisco, I used to go to this great shop called Real Guitars, because in the back is where everybody used to get their guitar repaired. We'd always get our guitars repaired from a guy named Gary Brower. And everybody takes their guitars to Gary Brower on the West Coast and out there, especially in Northern California. Joe Satriani, Neil Schoen, all those San Francisco guys would be taking their guitar to Gary Brower. And my good buddy Fernando worked in there. And one day he said to me, Johnny, you got to come down to the shop and check out my new telly. And I said, I don't know, bro. You getting a new telly? And he said, yeah, you got to come down and check it out. So I went down there. I checked it out. I think I was bringing a guitar in for like repair or something. I was doing something, maybe switching out some pickups already. I'm trying to think what guitar I might have had at the time. I don't remember though. And basically they just had this guitar in there and there was very little known about it. Now, I was told that the guitar was made by Big Tex Guitars and that it had Lawler pickups. But I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm going to say it's got Lawlers, but I'm not 100% on the nose with that. I don't know for sure. Here's the thing, though. I will tell you this. If you want a pickup recommendation, I don't know if I've ever played Lawlers. If those are Lawlers, I like them. If they're not, I don't know. But that guitar to me, I never want to open it up and look at it because I love having a guitar that I don't know who made it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what kind of pedigree it has. All I can see is it has a Glendale bridge and it sounds great. It's light. It's got this pine body. I don't want to know, is the neck all parts? Is it Mighty Might? And then they beat it up or whatever. It doesn't feel like any other neck I've played. Is it hand shaped? I have no idea. But I know this. I enjoy not knowing because it gives that guitar for me like a real sort of character and a real sort of soul. And I'm really, really into that. I mean, I am really into that. For real. So, my buddies are texting me about politics right now. Anyway, so I wish I could tell you, but if you want some pickup recommendations, Lambertone's Blondies, his Lambertone Blondie pickups are really good. They're really good. The Sues put them in a Squire Telly. So good. Like really good. We did a little demo on the site, and you can find that, and hopefully you can listen to that demo, and that might convince you to buy some Lambertone pickups. Curtis is a friend of mine, so I might be a little bit biased, but in terms of trying to get people to buy those pickups. But I'll tell you, they sound great. They just sound great. That's not even debatable. All right. Reginald Bourne wants to know, HW, have you ever used the Kemper in conjunction with the Helix floor? If so, how? I have, Reginald. Reginald Bourne. I have, Reginald, and it was... What I've done is what a lot of people have done and just put the Helix in front of the Kemper and tried out some effects. Now, I never did it live, but you could do it. The preferred way that a lot of people do it, because they want to have switching over, they want to use the Helix to sort of switch everything, and they might just want the Kemper to be a profile. You can send MIDI out to change the profile, but what they usually do, so that they can get effects in front and after the amp and make it super easy, is they just put the Kemper in a Helix loop. So they put a loop on the Helix, they go out of the Helix send, and to the Kemper, and then from the Kemper output back to the Helix, and then all the switching is done on the Helix. I hope that makes sense. But then that enables them to put Helix blocks before the Kemper and after the Kemper, and then they usually don't use the Kemper effects. That's how I know. Like, there's a guy from a YouTube channel called Yeatsy Guitar. His name's Tanner Yates. He's got a really good ear, and he makes some good content. You should check him out if you don't know him. But it's Tanner Yates from Yeatsy Guitar. I'm not going to be able to spell that off the top of my head, but it's, I don't know, Yeatsy Guitar, Yeatsy. I think it's Yeatzee. I'll try to link it down in the comments below if you're watching a video version of this. But basically, dude, he's got a good ear. I'll tell you how I know he has a good ear. Several times there's been amps that I have profiled, and I know they're not huge names, and I'll give you the name of the most recent one. The Teeler 46 pack we put out was profiles of a Tyler JT46. Now, I profiled that amp, and I thought that amp was smoking, was great, was awesome. But I also know that a lot of times, one thing I've learned by profiling a lot of amps and selling the profiles, people listen with their eyes, right? So if you see me, making a big deal out of a vintage amp, it's probably more because I love the way it looks and I love the way it sounds than I just love the way it sounds. Now, that doesn't mean I dislike, that doesn't mean there's amps I love the way it sounds. It just means, it's nothing to take away from the vintage amps, but it means like that Teeler amp, that Tyler JT46, and so we did the Teeler 46 profile pack. That amp I knew sounded tremendous, but there's no like video I can make that's going to tell people, hey, you really should check this one out. It just is a great amp. It sounds really fantastic. And Tanner Yates wrote something on Facebook, the Yeatsy Guitar guy. He wrote something on a Facebook group that we're both in. And it's called Kemper P&W. It's a Kemper group for all like these, all the Sunday morning guys, all the Sunday morning players. And he wrote like, wow, I was really surprised. This thing was awesome. It was great profiles. And when he called it out, I was like, all right, this guy's listening. But I knew he had a good ear already. He makes some great Helix stuff, really good Helix stuff. He's a great player. Anyway, all right, enough of that. Whoops, my phone went to sleep here. That'll be my barometer, you know. If the answer to the question is so long that I yawn at the end and forget and my phone locks up, that means it took too long. So Reginald, I hope that answers the question. I would recommend putting the Kemper in the loop and then using a lot of the effects from the Helix. Why? I love the Kemper effects, but the Helix effects are really good, and I actually prefer the Kemper reverbs, but I prefer the Kemper reverbs, but I think there's definitely more drives in the Helix, right? In terms of compressors, I like the Helix compressor, but I've only used it natively in there, right? Like I've never actually compared it to a Cali 76 or ran it out and just used that. So it's hard for me to compare all the effects directly, but you know, it is what it is. All right, next question. Do you have profiles accept specific songs for worship? There are some on the website. And you can get them up there. And I've got everything that we've released. We've released 50 song-specific performances, but they've only gone out in bundles and to the people who own something called the Worship 100 pack, where we said we're going to do 100 popular worship songs that a lot of guys use on Sunday mornings at their church. We sold it for $100. 100 performances for $100, came with a bunch of profiles, was really good stuff, and got some in my eye, man. And I think that was a killer deal. Now we're still working through releasing all those. We have released 50. And we're working on the other ones. But yeah, there you go. They're up on the site. I think only 6 are available individually, but I'm trying to work on getting more of them up. Okay, if I'm profiling my amp at home, this is Agent Sims. So this is Jonathan Sims. He says, if I'm profiling my amp at home, should I run my 906 through my interface in plug-in consoles? Okay, here's my thought on that. If you want to run, basically, the Kemper can and will profile plugins. As long as the Kemper's not seeing too much latency from any device, it will profile it. So you definitely can do that. I personally do not. Rebay does. He makes, I think there's a video of him on his YouTube channel where he goes through his sort of signal chain. And so, you know, they work. I know it works, right? A lot of guys put UA stuff in there. You could probably get like a Slate microphone, right? And run the Slate plugins, and all that mic is doing is EQ shaping, right? I mean, there's no... It's so funny. It's so funny. Producers have acknowledged the fact that a microphone, which is made up of like a physical ribbon or a condenser or a dynamic, all it's doing is imparting an EQ curve, right? It's picking up the sound, imparting an EQ curve. And then someone came along, I think his last name Slate, I forget his name, Nick Slate or something. He comes along and he goes, look, if I have a microphone and I know how it responds, I know how it picks up this frequency, this frequency, this frequency, and this frequency, then I know what corrective EQ I need to apply to get it to sound exactly like a 57, and then what corrective EQ I need to apply to get it to sound exactly like a Royer 121. And then I think this technology exists. I think digitally you can even duplicate the signal and model two separate the microphones from that. If you can't, they should add that. And one of the cool things that would do is digitally you'd be putting the microphone in the same exact spot as another microphone, which is something you can't do in the physical world because, two physical pieces of matter cannot inhabit the same space. But I suppose. But if they can't do that, they should do that, if that makes any sense. So should you, if I'm running a profile at home, should I run my 906 through my interface in plugin consoles? You certainly can. You certainly can. I mean, like in those profile, you're asking, Jonathan, because I recently did the 906 and I said this is the one, if I was going to have just one, I've got a 906 right here. If I had just one microphone that I was going to use to profile amps or mic amps, if I could just use one, it would be this dynamic microphone. And really, it was just this over 57, right? Because you can only have one mic. It's got to be an easy mic that you don't have to do a bunch of stuff to. So it's kind of got to be a dynamic mic to begin with, because for live use, if you get a ribbon or a condenser or something, you probably want to pair something with it. Dynamic mics are great at what they do, but they don't do everything, if you know what I mean. But they do a great thing. And so this Sennheiser 906, it's got a little switch you can flip. You can get 3 different kind of EQs out of it. And it sounds great. All it really is does it boost the top end, leave the top end alone, or roll the top end off? Now, that's a really good feature too, and I haven't shown that off, but that is cool because by rolling off some of the top end, that dynamic microphone starts to sound like maybe a little different type of microphone. It still sounds like a dynamic, though. It's not fooling anybody. Hope that answers the question, man. I say go for it. You're probably going to get a better sound. When I did the 906, I was running it through like a Cappy VP25, which is like an API clone. Cappy is clone API. And those are real popular in Nashville. I think they sell them as kits, which is how they got popular. This one was a pre-built one from Cappy. And they're cool because they have versions that don't just model the API 500 series, because I have some API 512Cs, but the other thing that they model is some of the old API larger channel strips, stuff that API doesn't even make in 500 series racks anymore. So you can't even get them. They never existed, but they're desirable, but they're in other formats. So the people at Cappy sort of put together 500 series versions of those. That's what I use with that 906 mic. No, I'm sorry. It's a VP26, a Cappy VP26. So I was using pre's. So go ahead and use something. And if I would just say be careful with the compressors because you're going to put on some compression. Kemper's going to pick it up and go, you've got a noise gate or a compressor or something in your signal chain. What is that? Dadendorp says, are you going to make some new Tweed IRs for the HX Stomp? True story, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag on this one. Yes, I actually have some IRs that I was shooting, and the guys at Worship Tutorials have really been asking me for some Fender stuff. So I actually have a very large collection of IRs coming out. It's going to be the speaker from my 64 Deluxe Reverb, which is a Jensen P12, an Alnico P12. There's going to be IRs of that. There's going to be the Jensen Concert Series 212 cab. That is the twin reverb cab. There's going to be IRs of that. I also have an amp nobody knows of yet, and I haven't shot the IRs yet, but they'll come out all at the same time. It is the Pro Reverb, and it's 212 original 1965 Utah speakers. So right there, we've just covered with the Utahs, with the Jensens, and with the Jensen Alnico P10s, we've just covered, Alnico P12, we've just covered pretty much all of the blackface speakers that were used in Fenders. Like, we just covered all the blackface amps. So you're going to have like every flavor of blackface tone. And then the one that's missing is the 57 Tweed, because these it's actually right behind me right there. These P10s, it's a 310 cab. They're beautiful and they're really nice speakers. P10s, 10-inch Alnico speakers can be kind of bright and it can be difficult to rein in the top end. So I'm going to have my homework out for me on that. But true story, and I'm going to do a video on this, I actually broke the $7,000 amp. I broke it by doing something dumb, and it's something I can easily fix in about 3 minutes, but I haven't done it yet. While I was trying to make IRs of that cab, I actually pulled on the speaker lead just a little bit too hard, and it popped off one of the leads from the solder spot on the speaker. So currently, I cannot even use the 57 cab, which means I really can't use the 57 amp. So I broke my $7,000 amp. Whoops! If you can't laugh about breaking a $7,000 amp, I don't know what to tell you. But look. Pulling a speaker lead off a speaker, I can see where the solder snapped off. And truthfully, what I know is that when that amp was at a shop called Heim, it was at a guy named Heim's shop here in Nashville, he had cleaned up the amp. He had given it a once-over. I think he did a cap job. He replaced a couple components that were failing. He retubed it. He looked at everything. The other thing he did was he put a 3-prong power cable on it, and he put new speaker leads on the speakers, right? He put new wires on the speakers, original speakers, but just replaced the speaker wires and, sort of just gave them healthy, fresh, soldered them up real nice, made sure the connections were all real good. And I think one of them was a little weak because it popped off very quickly. And so I was like, oh man. So I think just the way it was sitting, it was mostly sitting on solder and not actually really sitting like against the tab and then solder was around it. I think there was a little too much solder. It was sitting on top of the solder, and which is fine from a connection standpoint. An electrical connection standpoint, that's okay. There's no difference as long as the solder is connecting it. But I think, but why I say that solder can snap. And so there you go. The solder can snap. Let me mute that so we don't get that anymore. All right. So yes, there's a plethora of IRs coming out. We're about to change the IR game. You heard it here first. Tone Junkie's about to change the IR game. Just watch. Just watch. Just watch. I've been watching the IR world for more than a year now, and I see what's hype and I see what's real, and I'm making some real ish right now, and we're about to change the IR game, and because there's so much BS and fluff, and there's so many guys shooting 1,000 IRs for no reason, and they're like, reshoots. We shot new reshoots again. Why are your reshoots better? Why are they better? How about you do it great one time? Get what you want out of it. Shoot it 50 times to get the right one out. But listen, you don't need to shoot it 50 times. You need to shoot it and then listen to it. And then it will tell you what it needs. If this is in a spot and you don't like the EQ, then you need to know how to move it back and forth. And if you don't know, you just try, right? There's trial and error. Vintage 10-inch speakers, 10-inch vintage speakers. Well, 10-inch speakers, I'll say, are the most difficult speakers for me to mic personally. I tend to always somehow end up with something undesirable and harsh, and then I have to massage it out. I have to move this mic over this way. Listen, now did this mic this way. Now this one up here, this one down here. And in the end, it works out. It's been the most challenging stuff. So this 57 Bandmaster took forever to get the mic placements of the 57 right. But once it was right, it was right. You know what I mean? So you don't need to shoot 50 versions of IRs. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous what people are putting out. I'll tell you another thing too. This whole 98K verse 48 verse 44, you guys, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, resolution does not matter. You are never, ever going to get something miraculous out of a 96 that you're not going to get out of a 44, because the resolution is all like better than the device you're listening on. Meaning like you're probably listening on consumer products, right? You're in a room, right? So then you have a huge EQ on top of that, of the room. You're not going to hear the difference between 44.1 and 96 in a room, like coming through a PA. But now, I'm not saying anything bad. I'm not saying like the Iridium's bad or something, because it has 96. I'm just saying this. The 44.1 is sufficient to get an EQ curve that's pleasing to the ear. You're not going to somehow get more fidelity out of 96 that all of a sudden makes your guitar sound amazing. It's about that IR curve. You know what I'm saying? It's just how many points on how many frequency points it's going to capture. And you're going to get an EQ that is not. It's one of those things I just think practically in the real world doesn't make a difference. No way someone could notice in the audience. Impossible. The best ear in the world couldn't notice in an audience. But A-B'd with some high quality pro stuff, maybe a discerning ear can pick it out. But hey, it is what it is. It's kind of a thing that the Iridium did to stand out a bit. But 44, 41 has been great for professional recorded music forever. That's what everyone's mastered tracks come out as. That's been the standard. So, and if you want to go to 24-bit, that's nothing wrong with that. But yes, I said 2020 was the year of the IR. People thought I was joking around. It's the year of the IR. Watch what happens this year. Watch what Tone Junkie does this year. This is the year of the IR. I'm going to build, you listen, Profile of the World is about to be IR the world. It's capture the world. Okay? And I guarantee that what I'm building, because I'm gonna drop some bombs, some IR bomb, like collections of stuff. Like you're not gonna know what to do with it, because I want to have the most useful, toneful, guitar player centric IR packs. And then I'm gonna do the next thing. There's a reason I call the current packs core packs, because I'm trying to get through all the fluff. I'm trying to get you to realize you don't need 5 versions of a 906 in every spot. Nobody wants that. I could profile the amp at 50 different EQs. It's not going to mean anything. You want it to sound good, and you want to be able to modify and change it. A 906 has a spot it can sit in, and I think you can move that around a bit with different amps, but you want something pleasing and pleasurable out of the speaker and out of that microphone. I think IRs are really for people about, here's a mic, here's a speaker, and then boom, here's different microphone complements, and let's talk about what those things do. So one of my goals in 2020 is we're gonna drop some big IR bombs, and then we're just gonna, through content, through videos, just educate people on how they can understand and think about these microphones, because the microphone is the final EQ curve on your tone. It's huge. I said this in a video recently, but Dan and Mick from That Pedal Show have been using a 906 on that show forever. That's really important, because when you listen to that guitar tone, there's nothing bad about using a microphone, because they have to use a microphone to pick up the sound, right? So if they used a 57, then it would have the 57 EQ curve. If you use a 906, it's a 906. If you use a 121 into this, what you have to do in that case, or in any case, is listen in context. And what that means is, you're playing a Tele, I'm playing a Strat, let's play through a Fender, let's play through a Vox. As long as we're all using that 906, it becomes irrelevant. The 906 becomes a control, not a variable. Put that on a t-shirt. The 906 is a control, not a variable. Did Christoph say anything about an iOS editor / rig manager? That's from Tim Oldenburg. No comment. I can't tell you. No comment. Sorry. I can't tell you anything. When will we get a harmonic tremolo on the Kemper? I have needs. That is not an effect I talked to Christoph about, but I'll email him about it. I'll email him. Still love all of the Sousa's Teles, but which one is the HH Trem? Dude, that's a one-off that Sir made, and somebody put it online. I'll tell you the story. I'm walking out of my bedroom a couple years ago. Wow, I've been in this house for 4 years. That's weird. Also, I just realized, looking at the little viewfinder on my camera, that this room looks like a long hallway on this, like how I have the camera set up. I got to get a different lens or something. This room doesn't look like that when I look behind me, but it looks like that on camera. It looks like long, like a hallway. It looks small. It's a good sized room, actually. That's weird. Anyway, okay, so I'm walking out of my bedroom, and I pick up my phone, and it was like it was the evening, I think, or maybe it was the middle of the day. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. And I open my phone, and I go to Facebook, and I look at the messages, or not the messages, I look at the little notifications, and the first one in there is this guy named Art Nevaeus. And he has put on this Facebook group a link, and he says, "Who's going to buy this?" And I saw it, and I immediately knew what I was looking at. I was looking at what's basically an Alt-T Pro, because at the time, Alt-T Pros came with Thornbuckers. Now, Alt-T Pros only come with SSVs, and Thornbuckers are sort of moved up to only the better models, which sucks for all of us, because Thornbuckers, I think, are some of the best pickups out there. I really like them. But it was basically an Alt-T Pro, like with a roasted neck and a trem, and two Thornbucker pickups. Excuse me. Wow, the time's catching up with me. And I knew what it was. I think it was on sale for $18.50. I knew that did not make sense. That should not have happened. That shop, I don't think, realized what basically custom Surs go for. And I think it was used. I think they had gotten it somehow, maybe on a trade-in or something, but they were selling it. And I think they looked up similar guitars and was like, oh, this is like an Alt-T Pro. It looks like an Alt-T Pro, but it's got a trem. I don't think they were familiar with the lineup, because they should have priced that guitar they should have priced it at 25, 26, 2,700 bucks for sure. And to be honest with you, I might have still bought it at that price, because if you went and ordered that model doesn't exist. And if you went and ordered that model today, Sir would charge you 3,500 bucks to make a model like that, just a custom model. But stores can order models and they can just make changes to like existing models. And as long as, here's what it is, because I talked to Sir about this, as long as basically that's something they do on guitars, it might not be a huge charge. Like, they'll go get Babinga and inlay marble in it or something. They'll do that for you, but you're going to pay for it. But if you're a shop, if you're Matt's Music, and you go, hey, can you make me some JM Pros, but I want a roasted neck, and I want to change the neck radius. Their thing is like, yes, we can roast the necks. That'll be this much more. Neck radius, choose this one, this one, this one, or this one, because those are the ones we build currently. If you want some custom radius, I don't even know if they'll do that, but so I bought it. I bought it so fast. Like, I just clicked buy it now, bought it. And I didn't even have the intention of giving it to Suze. I just thought to myself, this guitar needs to be owned by somebody who knows what this thing is. And I immediately went back on the Facebook group, and the posts were, someone got it, who got it, who got it? And I posted a meme, like, raising my hand. And people knew I had it. Immediately, I had people messaging me saying, I had 2 people messaging me saying, if you get rid of that, if you sell it to me. And I told everybody, the Suze has first dibs on it. So when I got it, we tried it. It was amazing. It is amazing. It's one of the best guitars that any of us own. But I knew what was going to happen to me. I knew that now the Suze at this time owned the Alt-T Pro already. He had bought the Alt-T Pro from me. And I had a black Alt-T Pro, which I sold to him. And then, he owned that. And I was like, Suze, this is like your Alt-T Pro, but with a trem. And I said, look, man, I have my Sir Strat. I have 2 JM Pros, one with humbuckers and one with P90s. And I just knew, like, this should be yours, And he said, okay, let me see this guitar. Let me borrow it for the weekend. And if I really like it, I'll sell my Alt-T Pro. And he did. He loved it. He played one weekend with it, and he just said, this is the most amazing guitar ever. I can't believe it. This is the best thing ever. I'll tell you another thing. Suze recently got a JM Pro, a gold one, and he plays it a bunch, and he's been playing it. And he said it's his number 1 guitar. And I said, really? I thought the Telly was still the number 1. He said, I haven't played the Telly in like a month. He said he picked up the Telly and he immediately was like, oh, I forgot. This thing is magic. And so, this thing is magic. There you go. So that's what's up with the, it's like a custom Sir Telly, the HH Telly, that was Feta Portera is the name there. He has another question too. He said, Sir Andy Wood, any good? It's good. I met Andy, and Andy let me play his actual prototype of the Sir Andy Wood model. The thing is, though, it's got a 16-inch neck, or it's got a 16-inch radius neck, so you've got to be used to that. If you don't like flat necks, you're not going to like it that much. But it's a 24 fret. Is it 24 frets? I think so. I think it's a 24 fret Telly with 2 awesome Thornbucker pickups and a great trem. On paper, I would play the heck out of that guitar. I would buy it. It's just kind of expensive, but I do like that guitar, and I might change the look to something a little more classic. But it fits Andy. It does Andy's thing. Sir or Fender Laffy Face from Nando Hube. These names I don't know how to say names, guys. I thought names would be easy. Sir or Fender. I'm going to go with Sir every time. Now, I will say this. Sir recently raised their prices on like a lot of their regular stuff. So their cheapest guitar right now is $2,700. I can't. I think an American Standard, if you buy an American Standard for whatever it is, $21.99 now. Maybe it's 2000, I don't know. $19.99, I'm not sure. I get it. Is the $700 worth it to keep? It might be. I still think the Sirs are amazing. I say get a used Sir over a new Fender any day of the week. And some of those Sirs are up to $2,100, $2,200. So they're up about 10% in the last 2 years. So decent appreciation on some of these guitars. How did the neural... this is Mateus Azevedo, 92. Were you born in 92, bro? That makes you... Oh, that makes you pretty old. You're like 21. 21 or 22. How did the neural cortex sound? Will it take over the Kemperverse? The neural cortex, when I played it at NAMM, had very little built in it. And it had no clean amps. It had only like higher gain amps. The lowest gain amp that I could find was like a JCM 800. And, NAMM's a tough place to try stuff. It had no delay built in yet, or it had no reverb and it had one delay. And the delay seemed to have limited controls so far because it wasn't really done being built. So I can't really judge the neural cortex at this point, but I don't think that anything's going to come in and take over the Kemperverse right now. I don't think the neural cortex is going to just like replace the Kemper. No, I don't think that. I want to hear what their capture technology sounds like. Look, guys, I listen to amps with microphones on them, and then I profile them, and I listen to the Kemper. They sound the same. They sound virtually identical. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, how do you get better than they sound the same? So to me, the neural cortex is really cool. I ordered 2. I'm in it. I'll do profiles for it. But no, I don't think it's gonna I don't think the Kemper's like obsolete all of a sudden, which I know some people do, but I just think those people they're not, I don't know, they're not living in reality or thinking or something. Monitors with merge profiles or tube amp cab with direct profiles. Okay, let me explain. Merge profiles to me are not as valuable as they appear at first. Okay, so let me give you one example. The value of a merged profile is that someone has taken a studio profile that they've captured with microphones, the full rig. Then they took a direct profile, they put them together, and they told the Kemper exactly where the amplifier stops and the cab begins. Okay? They told the Kemper, this is the amp. Everything else was cabs, mics, blah, blah, blah. What that allows the Kemper to do is accurately know what the cab and mic and everything sounded like. Because sometimes with direct profiles, you get the accurate sound, but then with the studio profiles, if you just defeat the cab, what I find is the Kemper leaves more high end in the amplifier than the cab. So the Kemper tends to think the cab is slightly darker than it is, and it attributes more high end to the amplifier. Does that make sense? So like if I take a direct profile of my 65 Twin and I say, all right, here we go. Here's a direct profile. And then I run that into some speakers. They sound identical. It sounds the same. But when I use a studio profile that I capture of that Twin, and then I turn off the cab and run it through the same speakers, it's a brighter sound. Not like an unrecognizable sound. It's not like it's so bright that it's unrecognizable, but it is brighter. So the value of a merge profile then becomes this. the Kemper knows exactly how bright the cab was. So a merge profile is most useful for when you want to take your powered Kemper head on stage with you with a cabinet. And you want that cabinet to be giving you stage sound. So you monitor cab off and you use that cab so you have air moving behind you. We say air, it's sound waves. But we're moving air behind us, and the front of house gets a clean, direct signal without messing with anything else. Okay. So what that means is, like, that's useful. That's very useful. But if you don't have the cab I had, then you're not going to, when I defeat that cab and you run that direct, now let's take that merge profile. Front of house is going to get the profile that I made, that Tone Junkie made, right? But when you defeat that cab, you've taken out my cabinet, the cabinet I used to make the profile. And then you might plug in a different cabinet. So you're going to get some differences now with your on-stage tone compared to out in the crowd. And so you might start EQing and making it sound perfect for the stage, but it might not sound perfect then for the front of house. Now, the front of house is probably going to EQ you anyway, so you're going to hear a different thing than the front of house hears. You're also standing in a different spot compared to the speaker. So I've never subscribed to the whole merged is better so that I can run a cab on stage and know that it's accurate and know that if I want to turn it up, it's still going to sound good out there. Walk around, put a speaker closer to your ear, it'll be brighter. So just changing your location changes the EQ of the amplifier, or changes the EQ of the listener. So I'm going to say monitors with merge profiles or tube amp cab with direct profiles. I'm going to say this: studio profiles with in-ears is how I go, or powered Kemper direct profile with a cab, or dudes, try those studio profiles and just delete the cab. They sound awesome sometimes. I did a whole video where I just took some deluxe reverb profiles, deleted the cab, turned off the cab, and did a bunch of IRs. And they sounded awesome. Awesome. Nathan H wants to know, do you always eat toast without anything on it? No, just during the Kemper show. We ate some toast. We had a toaster that is our new thing. Bro, Philip Judah said, bro, you ever come to Redding, California? We have great coffee. I'm from San Francisco, bro. I've been up to Redding a lot. I have some friends up there at BSM, and I think they graduated now. But I got some friends up there, and yeah, there's good coffee. I'm not in Redding much anymore because now when I go to California, I go to San Francisco to visit family. I don't go up to Redding much, but we used to camp up there. We used to camp, and I used to sleep in a hammock, and we'd go out in the wilderness and have a good time. What's your better IR for HX? I'm gonna augment this question to what's the best IR for HX. Stomp. And to that, I would say this: there's no such thing as a good or bad sounding IR. Tone is an equation. The result or the product of that equation, the result of that equation takes in everything. So I could give you the best sounding blue speakers that you've ever heard. Alnico blue speakers, capture just beautifully, and they just sound awesome. And if you put that with the wrong amp, or just an amp where the two EQs do not complement each other, then it's not going to sound good. This is one of the things why I'm committing to putting out a lot of IRs in 2020, and why I'm going to be doing a lot of IR content. It's because there's a lot of misunderstanding around IRs. Things like profiles are relatively closed systems, as Michael Britt would say. We've talked about this a lot. And he says, I like studio profiles because it's a closed system. Basically, all you can do is introduce the player and the guitar. And what does it sound like? Well, it sounds like this studio profile. And in that case, Michael Britt or myself or whoever has control over the amplifier, the cab, the mic technique, right? So when you're talking about IRs, you're talking about speakers and microphones and how they're captured. And if we're capturing a very bright sound, if we have an amplifier that was designed to make a very bright sound, we might have speakers that were designed to make a dark sound, right? Case in point, a Vox AC30 and a Celestion Blue. The Celestion Blue has a high mids peak. 2K is real pushed. 16 doesn't have much in there. 8 even doesn't have much in there. So on a Celestion Blue. Now, other speakers do, but you're not getting a ton of high-end presence on a Celestion Blue. A lot of people mistake Blues for being very bright speakers. They're chimey speakers. The push is in the high mids, not in the extended presence. If you put a Celestion Blue and graphed it out, go look at Celestion's website and look at the EVM. I don't know if they'll have EV speakers on the Celestion website, but if you find a chart, look how high the EVs go compared to the Blues. The Blues do not have an extended presence. So they're not, by my definition, like a bright speaker. They're a chimey speaker. But they work beautifully with bright amps. So you take a top boost. What's top boost? It means we boosted the heck out of the presence. We gave you a bunch of high end, so much high end that we gave you a cut in the power amp because it's so chimey, it's so bright. And really what's happening is the speakers there are bringing down some of this high end chime. Now, greenbacks have more extended presence. I think they sound great too. But they don't have that voxy quality that you get with Blues. It's weird that I just called it a voxy quality, but I think that's kind of how we perceive it. We perceive kind of this. What we call voxy is really more times than not the sound of Celestion Blues with a Vox. Even though greenbacks sound great, that sort of just compressed Alnico sound is there. So, to answer your question, the best overall M75 Fathead 57 or M75. Get the M75 pack. That's my favorite pack. My favorite IRs to date. And because those are my favorite speakers to date. Now, they do everything. Do they do everything the absolute best? No. Are they more chimey than a Blue? No. But you could put those speakers with any amp and they'll sound good. I guarantee that. They'll sound good. They might not sound incredible, right? There's amps that might be built for V30s that you put that with and it's a little overly bright and there's not enough mids, but I guarantee it'll sound good. Won't sound bad. Any pedal profiles next from Maharis 97. Profiles of pedals, like I always usually try to bake in some pedals, but I haven't in the last couple packs just because I felt like the amps were so, sort of, there was so much on their own. All right, all right, let's, Mark Kroskowski wants to know Sir Classic or Silver Sky. I liked the Silver Sky, man. I thought that was a good amp. I mean, a good guitar. Look at that. I don't even know what it is. It's a guitar. It's a guitar. All right, we got some questions on the face space as well. Facebook coming in with some questions. Let's expand on these and see where we're at here. And let's just go through them. Man, you know what? There's been some knowledge dropped here. You know what I'm saying? There's been some knowledge, man. That's all I'm saying. Okay, let's get into this. Is the quad cortex going to destroy Kemper? I don't know, man. I don't think so. I've always wanted to know, over the years, over profiling, obviously getting better and better, are there packs or amps you wish you could revisit and profile again with the gained knowledge? Man, yes and no. Like nothing that I really feel like we did a bad job with. But there is a pack I'm probably going to kind of redo. And I'll tell you what it is. It's the 65 Loman pack. And what I'm going to do is on the next pack, I'm going to get a Loman, but I think I'm going to get a little different year. I might get a 64 Loman bassman, but I'm going to get it with a big matching cab. And then I'm going to profile that. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to call it something slightly different. Because I think that first pack was great. There's only two things that I kind of wish I had done now. I wished I had went and got a vintage matching cab. And I didn't for that pack. I didn't have one. I just had the head. So I put it through my favorite speakers, and it sounds great. I love that pack. Those speakers, honestly, I think are a better fit like for that amp because it's a little Marshall-y. It's got a little more gain than most Fenders, Bassmans do. But I think I would like to capture that pack both for bass as well as for guitar, and I'd like to do it with the vintage cab, and I'd love to do it through a 15 in a cab for the bass, and then through two 212s, those big oversized 212s. I'm going to get one of those amps pretty soon, and I'm probably going to redo the 65 Loman pack. Now, it's going to be a separate pack. I'm going to kind of do a bass guitar hybrid pack to really capture that amp, but I'm still going to have the original pack out there. So kind of redoing it, yeah. In a way, that's one that I just go like, now that I have a Pro Reverb, I have a Deluxe Reverb, I have a Twin Reverb, all from 64, 65. And then I start going, well, I got to get my hands on a Vibroverb. I got to do a Dual Showman. And like the Tremolux and the Dual Showmans, those are other amps that I'm going, I find heads sometimes and I haven't bought them because I'm like, no, I need to get the proper cab. Not proper in the sense of good tone. I have cabs that'll sound good. I want to get the vintage accompaniment. So I kind of wish that I had a vintage cab. Now, like I said, I can redo that. Somebody said that I didn't capture really the Bella 100%. That could be true, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'll wait for them to come out with a Bella 2 or something, and then I'll do that one. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I could do something again. I don't know. How much of an impact do you think microphones have on the overall sound and character of a profile? Like what percent of the sound is the amp versus the speaker versus the mic? Oh man, what percentage? This is so hard. What percentage is like the sound of the amp versus speakers versus mic? Okay, I was just having this conversation with the Suze. If you ask me what's the number one thing in the signal chain of good, and let's just break down the signal chain for a minute. Pickups, guitar, like guitar and pickups. Let's just leave that as one, right? You could always change the pickups in a guitar, right? But let's just call it pickups in a guitar. That's one variable. Amplifier, that's another variable. Cab, that's another one. And then we'll say mics and outboard gear. So mics and, compressors or preamps, whatever. If you said, HW, what has the biggest impact on tone? Maybe to the tune of 50%, I'd say. It could be the amplifier. Here's why. If you take a Telecaster and you take a Mesa Boogie amplifier, a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, and you turn that thing up, and you put it through V30 speakers, and you put it through a Royer 121 and a 57, a very classic pairing, that thing is going to sound like a Tele through a dual rectifier. Now, you can change one variable And the challenge is make the sound as different as possible. Gained up dual rectifier, and you can only change one sound. I would change the amp, and I would make it a clean Fender Twin. And now we've got a telly through a clean Fender Twin. Put that through speakers. The same speakers, V30s, same mics and everything. You will have that variable will change the sound more than anything. But here's the caveat. That's because we changed the gain. If you normalize gain, if you say, okay, let's measure gain like the Kemper does, and we'll say, fine, whatever amp you want to have to stay at this level of gain because we're more concerned with what's changing the EQ. We know we can get super djenty metal or we can get really twangy country or super clean funk. That's cheating, right? Like that's too much. You're changing, right? So, okay. If we have to stay with just sort of an edge of breakup sound, then I'd say it's the speakers. Yeah, then I'd say it's a speaker. But listen, it's all important. It's all important because I'd say it's the speakers, but if you go switch out a fathead for a... Man, I just think I think the answer is this. In the variable of guitar to amp to cab, mic, and microphone, there you could do enough to any one of those variables to change the sound in a ridiculous way, right? But we got to remember, who's really changing an old 57 Strat and then exchanging it for a set of EMGs, right? So that's not really what you're asking. It's not really what we're trying to get at, Brandon. So it's tough, man, but I'm going to say 50% amp. The percentages don't even make sense, man. If we normalize gain, if we keep gain constant, right? I'll give it 25%. A telly on a bridge is unique. All guitars with humbuckers, not unique. Like an LP is not going to change that much from an SG. The difference between a Les Paul and a SG is not as big as the difference between a Les Paul neck and a telly bridge, right? So I can't even put any numbers on it. You could change the guitar variable big time or not. But I would say speakers are more important than people think. I think they're probably more important than the microphone because if you leave the microphone the same, you're going to get a similar EQ curve, but you're always going to hear that speaker changing through the microphones. I think all the microphones are sort of, I don't want to use the word dynamic enough, but they are all dynamic enough because they're not all dynamic microphones. But if they're dynamic enough, which they are, all the mics, you'll hear that speaker change. But the different mics on the same speaker, you'll hear an EQ change, but it'll always sound like that speaker. Like V30s always sound like V30s. You know what I mean? They have a thing that's always there and always present. So I'd say speakers are more important than mics. Mics are really important, though. Amps are important. Amps might be the amplifier section. If you have to normalize for gain, amplifier might be the least important, and I think that might be a surprise to some people. Okay, cool. Charlie had like a suggestion for a video. Could see what we could do there. Do you fear depreciation of the Kemper technology versus appreciation of older tube amps? I mean, yeah, man. I mean, I don't fear the depreciation of the Kemper, but I think. So I've been thinking about this lately. So this is just my thoughts, right? A lot of people know that I've been in corporate marketing for a long time, and now Tone Junkie is my main deal, and it's doing well enough that I can buy a $7,000 amp, right? Now I'm long term not going to keep that amp, and I have a couple vintage amps here. And I can't really just drop 7 grand on an amp, but I can drop 7 grand on an amp with the understanding that like this amp is not going to be with me forever. I have this amp. I'm going to profile it. I'm going to put those profiles out there. There's going to be return on that time and investment in the amp. I'm going to enjoy the amp because the amp gives me joy. I'm going to have the amp for a while. I'm going to make some videos about the amp. I'm going to share the amp with the world. And eventually this amp's going to go somewhere else. And so, there's a difference between like, I'm just going to drop 7 grand and that's it. But it has brought up some other things because I bought that Fender Twin from a while ago and I bought it for $1,400. And then I bought a Fender Deluxe Reverb and that was like $2,500. You might have just caught that. I remember growing up, Jason, I remember growing up, and not even growing up, but I remember 10 years ago, Princetons were not hot. Like, there were a lot of Princetons sitting in shops, and before Fender hadn't reissued the Princeton, and people didn't want Princetons. People wanted supers and twins and everything. And the past 10 years or so, there's been a real move towards small amps to the point that it doesn't even make sense. Vintage twins and supers are now going, you cannot sell supers. Like super reverbs do not sell right now. I'm not the only person saying that right now. There's a bunch of guys in Nashville that have supers that are just like, it's just worth more to me than it's worth. You can get vintage super reverbs for like $1,200. Like really nice, clean, original 1965 super reverbs. They're not expensive. You can find them all day long, all around. If anyone asks me what's the best buy on an amp out there, like a vintage amp, I'd say go get a super reverb. Because it's just ridiculous how cheap they are. Fender Twins have gone down in value, man, and Princetons and Deluxes are going crazy. There's people for Princetons are trying to get $3,000 for a Princeton, for original great Princetons, and that's a stretch right now still. But basically, man, I don't know. Everything's on its head. It doesn't make sense that see, here's the thing. The vintage amp market is there, right? There's huge demand for vintage amps, but they're choosing Princetons and Deluxes because you've got those amps from the same year. In real life, the premium models are the twins and the supers, right? The bigger models were more expensive. But what's happened on the market is the Deluxes and Princetons are going higher in value. Why? It's not because there's less Deluxes and Princetons made. I don't believe it's supply and demand in that way, in terms of there's just scarcity of Deluxes and Princetons, and there's like a plethora of twins. No, I don't think so. I think what it is the vintage market is still heavily affected by, at least for amps. For guitars, no one can touch, like guitar players are not going to touch 50s and early and mid 60s and even late 60s Fender Strats and Tellys. They're just too expensive. And so anyone who does buy it, a lot of players when they're really serious, they're studio guys and they really appreciate gear, they'll understand that you can buy a vintage piece of gear and you're not going to lose money on it. It's not like buying, a new Friedman or a Morgan or a new, I don't know, whatever, Bad Cat. And it's like, oh, you buy it new, it's worth less the next minute, you could get it used for cheaper. No, these vintage pieces are going to maintain their value and maybe go up in value. In fact, who is the guy who used to have the store in that? Well, he still does. It's not, is it Glazier? It's not Joe Glazier. Anyway, there's another shop in Nashville. I can't remember. It used to be right on Broadway. But that guy famously said, I've made way more money on my vintage Telecasters than I have in the stock market. And, that's the truth. Some guitars have really just gone crazy in value in the past 20 years or so. Like, 20x in 20 years, 10x in 20. I mean, it's crazy. But where that leaves the, Kemper depreciation, it's like, look, Kempers are not depreciating. There's demand for Kempers. They're selling units, especially stages and stuff. But we haven't seen the bottom drop out from the rest of the Kemper market or anything. It's not going to drop out. But vintage amps are always going to, they're not making any more 64 twins, 64 deluxes. So there's always going to be some demand for those amps. There's always going to be people that want those amps. I think if someone wants to invest in amplifiers right now, right? And let me circle back to this 57 and to this twin that I've got. It has brought up the question for me, could I look at some of these amps as an investment? Like, what is a twin going to do over 5 years? Now, the twin's $1,500. I can afford to spend $1,500, especially because I've got the amp. It's in business, we would look at trading, we would look at assets, right? And if you have cash, that's an asset. It's an asset on the balance sheet. If you take that cash and convert it into a piece of equipment, you have not lost any value. You've converted it to equipment. You don't count that as an expense, right? Like when I'm accounting for the IRS, I might have $250 or $300, and then I'll go buy this microphone. I think they go for $200 or something, or maybe $250. I don't know. It's been a while since I bought this, but when I go to the IRS and I say, "Hey, Mr. IRS, I had $250 cash. Now I have this microphone." It's a piece of equipment. It's an asset. For something that's $250 for a piece of musical equipment, the IRS says just take that as an expense, depreciate it in 1 year. But if this item were $5,000, right? It like if I tell the IRS, "Hey, I bought this 57 Tweed Bandmaster for $7,000," they're going to go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't take a $7,000 expense. We're not dummies. We know there's still value. You can't take all that expense at once. You got to take it over. You got to depreciate over time." Well, they'll let you depreciate musical instruments over time as long as they're, but they have to be over, I think, $3,000. Anything under $3,000 with musical instruments or musical gear, they say just take it in the first year. Just pretend. I mean, you spent the money. The money's gone. It's an expense. But in the real world, we know that those vintage amps are not going to go away, and you could take $1,500, put it in a vintage twin, and then hang on to it. Play it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. If you don't blow the speakers, if you don't, now if you have vintage tubes in there, you might burn them out, and then you got to go buy new vintage tubes. But you can still buy those. They're not insanely expensive. I mean, they're a lot more. You can get a regular like vacuum tube for like $6, right? Or I don't know, cheaper or something. I mean, you can get tubes. You can get a 12AX7 for $6. You might pay $25 for a nice vintage one, but there's a lot of. I mean, you could still get them. It's not like people spend $400 on delay pedals. You know what I mean? You could put $200 worth of glass in your really nice, old amp. And if you want to be smart about it, just get a vintage tube and put it in V1. You've probably got 90% of the tone right there in the first tube. After that, the tubes are doing less and less. Phase inverter makes a difference. Power tubes, just, put in something good. Put in some, a lot of people in old vintage Fenders will put, the old some Mesa Boogie tubes and stuff because they run a little cooler and they're trying to just make that amp last a long time. Now, it could mess with the mojo. Maybe it sounds fine. Maybe you get the Mesa pack that's up a little higher, the tubes that are biased a little hotter or something. But you can do it. So I really think of vintage gear right now. Like if someone wants to invest in vintage gear, my suggestion could be check out supers and twins, because those prices are being determined by players who want light amps. And from a collector standpoint, I think that might be providing an opportunity where if someone bought a bunch of supers and twins today, they might make good money on the return. But, what is that? Is that worth it? Is that risky? I don't know. But I think what's cool is if you're in the market and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to spend $1,500 on an amp. I would suggest to you, think about getting an old super, because in 10 years, they could be worth $3,000. And you will have had that super that whole time. And probably once they're worth $3,000, you'll be drooling over them because you won't be forgetting how cool they are. That's just my thoughts on it. So I don't fear depreciation of the Kemper technology because the Kemper's so great and still works. Sorry. But I do think about appreciation of older gear. I do wonder what happens to a 57 over the next 10 years. I don't know. I really don't. Is the Kemper still doing it for you tone-wise, or is there a lure to go back to amps? Nah, the Kemper's king, man. The Kemper really does it. It really captures the amps. I love amps. I'm sitting here looking. I took the chassis out of that 57, and I've got it on my desk right here. I always take the chassis out of amps when I profile them because I want to put the speakers in another room. So so for combos, I got to take the amp out. And I love just looking at this thing, man. I mean, I love just looking at it. It's beautiful. It's just all his old parts, and you can see the bent metal. They made the chassis and the transformers with like the whatever it is they got, like the tape with the wax. It kind of looks like Cosmoline or something. It just looks really good. So no, I'm not going back to amps, but I do love amps, and I have amps around. There's a couple of amps I've been keeping. I've been holding on to this deluxe reverb and this twin and this thing, but I'm doing a special pack actually. And that's what I have, like 1 or 2 more pieces to add to the collection. Then I'm going to do a special pack where I'm going to try to like reimagine what if Fender had done things differently. Like what if a deluxe reverb did in fact, what if that had been the model that they used 10-inch speakers on? And what if this 57 had a different type of speaker? So we're just going to make some profiles using mismatched speakers and amps and see what happens. And I bet we'll get some good stuff out of it. I bet we'll get some real good stuff out of it. Okay, if HW was 18 in 2020, would he play the Kemper? Should Taco Bell offer to pay it later feature if you and your car mates forget their money? Yes. Shout out to Carter's, by the way. I'm wearing a Carter's hat, and I've got a lot of great amps there. If HW was 18 in 2020, he probably... Man, if I was 18 today... Yeah, man, I might be looking for a digital thing. I might have gotten into it by now. I probably would have found those groups online because I've always been really big on doing research on the internet, even when it was back in the Harmony Central days. And I had this roommate, and I remember he told me, he's like, dude, he was like, you're really committed to guitar. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, and he would tell me, he's like, every single night I walk by your room and I see you just in front of your computer, just like researching tone, just reading about guitar stuff, just looking at pictures of guitars. And that's just what I did all the time, every night. And so it's no wonder that I do this now, It's no wonder that I spend hours talking about guitars and tone and all that stuff. It's no wonder. It's no wonder at all. Should Taco Bell offer a pay it later feature for you/your car mate if you and your car mate forget their money? Yes, they should. That happened to me. I'm not sure if you know that. Of course you know that. Without placing an EQ in the X slot, what are your go-to settings for taking the high-end shrill out of the Kemper if you were into that? Yeah, man. So this is to Rod Bellotti. Bellotti. The last guy was Gavin Donati, by the way. Gavin, that was funny, dude. Yes, Taco Bell should offer the pay it later feature. This is Rob Bellotti. So Rob, yeah. So here's what you can do. Go into the cab section. I'm next to my Kemper, so I'm going to look at it as I do it. Go into the cab section, and hang on, I'm on a direct profile, so my cab section isn't lit up. Okay, there we go. Go into the cab section, and there's something called high shift. High shift will actually let you take the highest upper frequencies and shift them lower into the frequency range. That is probably your best bet for getting rid of high-end shrill. But my question would be, what's producing the high-end shrill? Is it a certain guitar that makes the profile too bright? In which case I might go, let's think about finding something else, or just use this parameter. But also just make sure it's not the monitors you're listening on or something like that, you know? Because you don't want to darken up too much. You might go and play live and they'll say, oh, excuse me, man, I've been working a lot. Sorry. And it is late here. I'm recording this pretty late. And you might just, here's my question. Did you yawn when you heard me? Like, I know I'm in a lot of people's like earbuds, people listen to this thing on airplanes, on the treadmill. Like, did you just yawn? If you did, that's weird. Yeah, dude. So try that high shift, bring it down, bring that high shift down. Because it's at 0, so you can go negative or positive. So you can, but go down. That's what you want to do. If you could gain the immaculate playing style of one guitar player, who would you pick and why? John Martin Mond. Or Mand. John Martin Mond. One guitar player to pick their style? One guitar player, the immaculate playing style. I mean, nobody plays like John, you know? Nobody plays like John. John Mayer is up there. But I would pick these guys. I would say I really enjoyed John Cordy's pentatonic 3-note per scale kind of legato stuff. I really do. But I would probably say one guitar player, man, it would probably be John Mayer. Second to him would be it'd be John Mayer, and second to him would be maybe Nels Cline. I don't know. Maybe. I like Nels Cline, but could be, well, no. I was going to say like Tepi Teranishi, but no. I love that music. I love Thrice, but no, it wouldn't be Tepi. Man, it'd be John. I mean, obviously there's guys like Mateus Asato that are just like, you know, everything they play is beautiful. But, man, it would probably be him or, yeah, I got to go with John Mayer. Because John's really expressive with the guitar. And he's also, man, the stuff he writes sometimes is simple to play and like simple sounding, but it's so melodic. It's so catchy. John's really a student of good melodies. I know people don't like John Mayer, but that guy is a student of good melodies. That's for sure. He's got some hell of a set of hands, you know? Do you always eat toast without anything on it? Yeah, I already answered that. No, I don't always eat toast with anything on it. Sometimes, though. I mean, look, it's not, I mean, we toasted it right there on the show. I had to eat it, okay? He's referring to That Kemper Show, episode number 3. We actually have a toaster that was converted into a Kemper. It actually, like, makes toast, and you can plug your guitar into it and do all that stuff. So, what happened to your pedal board project? Dude, I'm still working on it. I'm still thinking about it. I'm gonna get a pedal board together. Can you do a profile segment showing profiling an amp with an amp isolated and 2 mics? Yeah, I gotta get this place cleaned up a little bit. You know why I haven't done any content of the actual amp room? because in front of the amp room door is like a bunch of tools and like old wood, or not old wood, but it's just wood I didn't use. I got to get that room cleaned up, but I got to try to get rid of some wood. And I didn't know where to put the wood. I put it in the garage. My wife told me to move it because it was like blocking the water heater. So I just put it back in that room there. So I got like a bunch of wood and, some like extra foam. It's just like, there's like storage in there. So I'll do a video. I guess I'll do a video of that. Yeah, I'll do that eventually. I got to get this room cleaned up too, man. My desk in front of me is like a mess. There's just like so many pedals and picks. I think there's like 5 tubes that have like gone bad that are just like under my screen that were lined up and then they got knocked over, and then, I threw, it's just memory cards and guitar picks and fuses and, it looks like the guitologist, the guitologist guy. It looks like his room on my desk right now. But yeah, Scott, I'll try and do that, man. That actually would be a good idea. When do you believe they will release the new drives? Man, I don't know. I know 2 of them are done, but I don't know anything more than that. I can't tell you which ones either. I probably shouldn't have told you that, but whatever. Are there any amps that don't sound good profiled? Dude, I honestly have not really found that to be the case. What I have found is that there are amplifiers that are difficult to mic. So I have heard people say like, this amp just doesn't profile. And kind of what I feel like it is you sit there and you listen to the amp, and then when you put mics on it, I swear, some speakers, some amps or whatever, you're now listening to an up close little spot on the speaker, and that makes it very difficult to like replicate the same sound. So I think that's kind of what's meant when people say like you can't, it's difficult to profile or it won't profile that thing. I think the Kemper has the parameters to profile. I think it's dialed in to profile what guitar amps create. I don't think there's really amps that are like so unique that they can't be profiled or something. I just think it's really miking it and getting it to sound similar or kind of like it does when you were listening to it. Sometimes those qualities change and get masked a little bit and it takes on a new persona. I know that was true with this 57 Bandmaster. Other amps that have been difficult have been the Twin. The Twin was a difficult one, but we did it. I think this sounds awesome, like an incredible Twin. Can your Tesla profile amps? No, but I am going to profile an amp in the Tesla. I'm going to make the first profile of an amp like running, like while I'm like driving the car, and I'm going to put the car on autopilot while I profile it. It's going to be epic. It's going to be epic. It's the dumbest idea I have ever had. But I'm going to let the Tesla drive me down the freeway while I profile an amp. I guarantee it. I'm gonna do that like this month, like in February, maybe March. I'll try and do it this month. What about profiling the VW car with the built-in amp? Remember when Slash was promoting that, where you can plug your guitar directly into the car? I do remember that. I do remember that. I mean, I guess at some point those cars will be worth like $2,000, right? Eventually they're going to get so run down. I should go look for one. I think though, to be honest with you, that was just an added stereo. Like I think that was just a normal Jetta and they had a version of it that was like a Fender limited edition version. So I bet I could find that, like that stereo, and maybe I could just power that somehow, if that makes sense. And then I don't need to buy the whole car. That probably is a better way to go. Yep. All right. We got one last question here, and I'm tempted to not answer it. because it's something I've both answered many times and never really answered at the same time. Oh, Josh Myers put, will the new Kemper cab fit in your Tesla 3? Who would win in a battle of Indian leg wrestling, you or the Sioux? I don't know what Indian leg wrestling is. Is that where you lay down and lock your legs and try and put them down? I think I might win. I'm not sure. I have long legs. I mean, I'm tall. I'm pretty tall. Everybody who meets me, like at NAM, the number one comment I got was, well, hey, HW or something. But the second comment was, wow, you're a lot taller than I realized. People don't realize I'm like a hair above 6'2". I'm a tall guy. I'm a big guy. I think because I'm always sitting in videos, and the other thing I notice is I slouch a lot, especially in that stool. In a lot of those videos, Suze looks taller than me. That is not factual. And sometimes I noticed, like in the last video I put out, I'm like sitting back further. What it is I'm sitting, and a lot of times my legs are like kind of, I'm like I'm like, what they, on like the subway, you put your legs, but I'm trying to sit with like my legs on two different sides of the stool. Because when you just sit on one side of the stool, it just feels like you're like, locked in this little position of like this tiny little chair. So I'm sitting with my legs on sort of two sides of the stool. And a lot of times I have my arms down in front and I'm not leaning back. I'm like kind of leaning forward. I don't know. Whatever it is, I sometimes look shorter than the Sues in the videos, but in reality, I'm a good amount. I'm pretty tall. I'm a tall guy. Like I said, I'm 6'2", so people are surprised when they meet me, I guess. I mean, not that 6'2" is like so tall or something. Okay. I think that was where's that last one? Okay. Patrick Ward wants to know what HW means. And, it comes from the movie There Will Be Blood. But I think deeper in a psychological sense, when I adopted the HW persona, there probably was enough things going on in my life that I was, I think in a weird Freudian way, I may have been trying to like shed some baggage or something. Because it felt better to me to be HW when I was starting a YouTube channel. And I know I always say this, and this is true. This is what was going through my head. What was going through my head was I had watched There Would Be Blood, and I thought the name HW sounded dignified. And I figured HW, that's like Beyonce or Justin or Beyonce or Jay. It's a name that, you don't know any other HWs. And I thought it sounded dignified, like I said, and I figured if you're going to go talk about something, you're going to want a name that, has an air of authority about it. Everyone has a buddy named Jonathan, and, what does he know? I knew a Jonathan. He was an idiot. Maybe this guy's an idiot. So at the end of the day, HW is just an opportunity to be a little more just to be a little more memorable in my calling card. And then it all just sort of came out, well, hello there. I don't know where that came from. I don't even remember the first time I did it. But, well, hello there. My name is HW. That has just become like the thing, right? And at NAM, I even tried to go, people go HW, and I would try to turn them and go, well, hello there. And, because it's memorable, and the whole HW out thing, I don't know where that came from. It's just slowly these things, evolve. So what does HW mean? Well, it is from the movie There Will Be Blood. I had watched that movie. I thought it sounded regal, and I thought, I'm going to be a YouTuber now. I'll be an influencer, whatever those words mean. I was just starting a YouTube channel for fun and because I wanted the tax write-offs. And as the story goes, later on, I got, really soon after that, I got into the Kemper, and it was like bada bing, bada boom. Now HW is like, all about the Kemper. And I am in my real life. What's funny is now a lot of people call me HW in my real life. And it reminds me of my buddy who, when we were young, his name was Ryan Ho. He always hated that name. They always called him Ho Bag, Ho Man and everything. And, he's a little Chinese kid too. So he's kind of getting made fun of a lot. And he just one day, he was reading a book and he found this name, this old name that's like traditionally, I think, a Swedish name. And it is Devasair. And he there was a character and he just thought the name was cool. So he started calling himself Ryan Devasair. And then eventually people called him. I would say, they would say, "Who's going with you?" I go, "Oh, Ryan Ho," and people would just look at me like, "Who's that?" And I go, "Devasair." Like at first it was Ryan Devasair, and then eventually people didn't even know his name was Ryan. He just started going by Devasair, and that was his name, Devasair. So I mean, even when I just say Devasair, I know exactly. He's in my phone as Devasair. He's always been in there, right? And we call him Dev. We go, "Hey, Dev," and that'd be it. So I think, and it was about a year late, 2 years later. No, he had that name for a while, but I stopped seeing him for a while because he kind of disappeared. He got really in. He lived these European lesbian chicks lived above him in like an apartment. And I don't know if he had a thing for unavailable women or what, but he then started he got really into one of these chicks and started hanging around her a bunch, and he kind of fell in love with her, and we were all like, "Ryan, she has she's living with that other woman." But she had an accent, and that accent was maybe more powerful than logic, so we couldn't really explain it to him. But I don't know, somewhere in there he had she was unavailable, and something about that, maybe his mother was too cold to him or something. I'm not sure. But uh you know that's kind of where it came from, man. I just adopted the name, and it just kind of became a nickname. And now a lot of people know me as HW. And I don't know, at some level it was like just a persona at first. It was the alter ego. It's just who I am now. Um, HW was the guy who did Tone Junkie, and Jonathan did the other stuff. And now I do this all the time. And so, you know, it just is. I bet if I talked to a psychiatrist, they'd say there's some, Freudian thing going on with shedding baggage and stuff. But I was going through a lot of change in my life in those years. We had moved. I had relocated my family. I had left all my friends, all my family. We were in a brand new place, and we were just, it's a different thing when you grow up in a spot and you stay there and everyone knows you and they know you since you were 8 or 6 or 12 or 15, whatever. They've known you forever. You show up somewhere new and you're an adult, and they're only going to meet this version of you today. They don't know those other versions of you that are gone. And it's interesting, it's just a different experience I've had. And a lot of people, what's so funny is now all these people know me as HW, and I go back home sometimes and people go, "What do you do now? What do you do?" I see you have I saw a video of you. I'm like, "Yeah, I make a lot of videos." They're like, "What do you do? Like a thing with amps? You sell amps?" I go, "Yeah. Yeah, something like that." I'll be talking. I'll be like, "Yeah, I have this podcast." They're like, "You have a podcast?" I'll be like, "Well, not a good one." Not a good one. Chill out. It's not a good podcast. Oh, man. Well, this has been a fun episode, I think. I like these episodes, and I think I'm just going to start throwing these up on YouTube all the time. These are going to be my sit downs and Ask HW hours and just getting into stuff. And I love getting into topics and stuff like that. And I think pretty soon we got to do an episode where, you know what? Next time I'm going to have to weigh in on this whole. Rhett Shull made a video that I almost wanted to make a video responding to, but I just didn't. And it's a good video where he talks to Dave Friedman and Joe Morgan, and he talks to Mike Soldano, and he talks to the gentleman from Tone King, who I don't remember his name, but it's a good, it's good. It's good. Did I say it's good? It's good. It's really good. And yeah, it's just there are opinions in there expressed that I don't disagree with, but it was really enlightening to hear them and their perspective, those amp makers, on what they think of digital. First of all, it became very obvious that they don't know the difference between digital versus tube, and how that is, they don't know the difference between digital versus tube and in-ear monitors versus cab on stage. They seem to think that there's only two options guitar players have. You can either buy a Line 6 Helix and put it on the floor, and you can listen to it through headphones, or you can buy a full stack, and you can let it feed back and be huge, and the other thing is just like wimpy and weak. And it's just like, what do you guys, it was obvious to me that they're in a bubble, that Joe Morgan and Dave Friedman have to be in like a bubble of older school guitar players, maybe rock stars, but dudes, listen, those two guys gotta think about this for a second. You're not making your living selling your amps to rock stars. You're not making your living selling your amps to rock stars. There are normal people there. I mean, how many Sunday morning guys are the ones who buy Morgans, and they're putting it through? I mean, they're playing with in-ear monitors. They want silent stages. So many people are putting amps backstage, under the stage, all this stuff. We're going to get into that on another episode of the Tone Junkie podcast. Hey, really quick, if you're still with me, thank you so much. If you could do me a favor, if you follow us on Instagram or YouTube or anything, if you could hit the like button on some of these videos, that would really help me out. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. Like I shared at maybe the top of the video, I've really been experiencing some kind of frustration with some, I feel like some of the better content isn't getting seen. But it's not up to me what the best content is. But if you could like and subscribe, I've had some videos that have really taken off and they really get new fans. And then I have another video right after it that, I'm just like, no, I thought all the videos were performing better, and then, it'll kind of tank or something. So, if you wouldn't mind, it really helps the YouTube algorithm, for a little like and sub, but you're probably subbed if you listen already, but just don't forget to hit that like button. And also, tell your friends, if you hear someone's in the market for a Tone Junkie, if you hear someone's in the market for a Kemper, tell them to check out the Tone Junkie loaded Kemper. It really helps. It really helps. It really does. They're good guys at British Audio, and I'm privileged to be working with them and everything. And all right, so my name's HW. Thank you so much for listening to the Tone Junkie podcast. I will see you guys very, very, very soon. Let's do this more often. This was fun, huh? Let's do this more often. HW.